Hi, everybody, and welcome to Lyfebulb Live. I'm sorry, we're a little bit late, and didn't start right at 4 o'clock. We had a little glitch. One of our ambassadors had something come up, so I quickly messaged another one of our amazing ambassadors to see if he could hop on, and lo and behold, he's here. So, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today. As I quickly texted you and said, "Hey, how about jumping in?" So, I really appreciate you joining.
I say this with love, and I say this to everybody. When Annmarie calls, I and she says jump, I say, oh,
How
already
high?
did. I'm already jumping. Tell me where.
Well, you
So
are just the best. I really, really appreciate it. And our conversation today, it's actually, we had a conversation as a team earlier about having a man on. So I'm glad that we actually had a man on it in the end. We are going to talk about intimacy and living with a chronic illness. And it's not just about sex or anything like that. It's about understanding your body now that you've had all these changes happening and the medication changes your libido and everything else and all of that stuff, and it affects us, and we're not, I don't care if you're 90 or if you're 60 or if you're 40 or if you're 30, you still want to feel good about yourself, both sexy and in an intimate way, but it's really hard after everything we've gone through. So Daniel, if you wouldn't mind, just really briefly, and I know it's really hard for you to do things briefly, give our everyone watching just a couple seconds or minutes about your diagnosis and things that you are living with.
sure. Well, hi everybody. I'm Daniel G. Garza, Life Bulb Ambassador, and I usually talk about recovery and cancer. So those are just a couple of things. So I'm HIV positive, have been for 20 years. Been in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction for over 14, and I'm an anal cancer survivor. I call it conqueror.
I love that.
And
Oh, I love Conqueror.
yeah, I'm an
I
anal cancer
love that.
conqueror, which I don't know, and those together sounds weird, but yes, I'm an anal cancer conqueror and an ostomy uh, carrier, and so that's like in a nutshell, really. There's all the little things that fill in the blanks, but that's really the main things that I advocate for that affect me on a daily basis. Uh, and then what was the next part about how does that affect my intimacy?
I mean, it just how can all of that not affect an intimacy in intimacy? It obviously does. And I think a diagnosis of anything is going to affect you that way because, it kind of just, I don't want to say destroys, but it does kind of look at how you look at yourself.
Yeah, well, okay, well, let's start from the beginning. HIV. When I was diagnosed with HIV, I was about to turn 30. I thought I was young and cute, and
You're still cute.
I see what you did there. and but I was about to turn 30. I lived in Houston. I was in a relationship, uh, and but when I was diagnosed with AIDS. So the word automatically puts
Altered
people
everything.
off. Yeah, just this, even today, 2021, the word AIDS still puts people off. So when you're in a relationship and you hear those words, whether you're the person uh, diagnosed or the person, the support system, it causes some kind of pause.
Ooh,
Uh, Regardless, well, nowadays I would we have to talk somebody more specific, but back in 2000 there was no U equals U. There was no PrEP. There was only, be careful, wear a condom. There's certain things you couldn't do. So the intimacy with somebody, physical was awkward.
mhm.
Sometimes talking about even future plans, that intimacy level, like, hey, let's buy a house, let's adopt some kids. Like, even for me, I wouldn't allow myself to go there with people I was dating. It was very awkward because I didn't know where my health was going to go. Now, mind
Sure.
you, this was 2000, but because of my social, religious upbringings, culturally, I did still believe that AIDS would kill me, and there was
Sure.
like it was going to end. So then, fast forward a little bit, I get clean and sober, and even that
Woo
causes
woo.
some, yes, thank you, even that causes some intimacy problems because there's the whole do I date somebody in program, Do I date a normie, which we call? Um, how are we going to talk about going to parties, being out with friends? Even that first initial conversation of, hey, let's meet for drinks. And I used to be that one. It's like, oh well, I don't drink. I'll meet you at a coffee shop because a bar. Blah, blah. And most of the times, people just were like, you don't have to drink.
I love that you're having this conversation because I think intimacy is not, we are discussing exactly the problems around it. It is not just in the bedroom, so to speak. It is going out to drinks. It is even going out to eat. I mean, there's foods that affect people and that affects a relationship when you, especially if it's new and somebody wants to go get, whatever, and you can't eat that because of X, Y, and Z reasons, or, you know, you have an ostomy, right?
Yes.
Right, so then you have that problem on top of it, like, and for me, I had breast cancer, I had my breast removed, so my body is completely different than what anyone has ever seen, and do you lead with that? Like, when you first start dating someone, is it, "Oh, by the way, blah, 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 blah," because you don't wanna do that in the beginning, so you
Yes.
have to find that level of comfort to be intimate with someone, and that is an intimate conversation to
Yeah.
have, and that can be really difficult in a new relationship.
I tend to forget that not everybody lives in the advocacy
I
world.
know, I do that too all the time. I'm
Social
like, "But you don't
media.
understand my invisible pain? How can you not understand that?" But you're not an advocate, so you don't get, you don't understand what we're
Yeah,
trying to do.
it's interesting because one of my other passions is spiritual coaching. So
Mhm.
I talk to people about newly diagnosed on something and how to work through that energy, and people in recovery how to work through that energy. But I forget sometimes that not everybody has a social platform where they share every intimate thing about their lives, and but it's weird because even with all the advocacy that I've done in my career, uh, those private conversations are still awkward sometimes.
Sure,
And um, cancer, as a gay man, being diagnosed with anal cancer, you're basically shutting down my sexual activity. Like
mhm,
you're interrupting what causes that sexual intimacy with my partner, which then causes conversation friction sometimes. Like, how do we
sure,
approach that conversation? How do you touch me? How do I touch you? And then the ostomy bag. If when you hold me, is that going to be awkward? Am I going to feel awkward? Uh, which people would think, how does that connect to the things? Well, it connects to alcohol and drugs. I'm like, this would be so much easier if I just had a cocktail. If I
yeah,
could just shot, I would be more comfortably being intimate, which then connects to when I was diagnosed with AIDS, the feelings of rejection that I felt in those times.
sure.
So everything connects to each other. And when you live in my brain, it's like, okay, I'm just not going to talk about it. And your partner starts to disconnect from you.
Sure. You said something that I think is really important. I actually think it could be a tip for people because people who are newly diagnosed are going to go through these phases that you and I both have, being 8 and 9 years out of our different diagnoses. You said pause. And I love that you said that because there is a pause on intimacy, both of a sexual nature and the intimate conversations you have with a partner. That pause is really important to understand because I've talked to a lot of people that have said to me, and I don't know how I'm ever going to get this back. I'm never going to get this back. This is, I should just give up. I'm just going to give up. Pause. I love that, Daniel. I love that statement. If we can remind people, take a pause on that. Focus on your mental being, your physical being, and slowly you will get that back. That level of comfort you have with someone else, that level of connection you have with someone else. And this is lifelong. Like this doesn't just go away. So it is something we have to grow with. But I love that you said pause. I've never looked at it like that, and when you said it was literally like a light went off because that's basically how I was for myself. I being intimate and having those conversations was extremely difficult, especially, losing my breasts and then, all the medication and everything and what it did to my body on a whole. If I would have just said to myself, okay, take a pause on that. That's not something you need to focus on right now. Focus on
Yeah.
this. Wow. Like that was mind blowing that you just said that to me. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Well,
And you
thank you.
said, one other thing that I think is really important: rejection. And I think it's not just about that other person rejecting you. I know that I felt my body was rejecting me. Like I felt like my body was a failure. Like I was failing at everything. I couldn't, you know, just yesterday I had another pain, and it was a serious pain. I'm like, is it MS or is it cancer? Is it like, what is this pain? But it was excruciating. And I thought, here's my body again failing me. So if I feel that way about my body being a rejection, how can I then have an intimate, relationship with anybody? Because I'm not even having it with myself.
Yeah, I giggle at that because it is so true. Um, I just had a brain scan yesterday. I
Mm,
went back for a checkup, and it was that moment. It was like, okay, here's my body going up. I gave you 6 years cancer free. It's time for something new. You've
right.
been we let you off too easy. Let's give you something else to worry about. Uh, and the ripple effect. I talk about this with my clients. It's the ripple effect. If I am, this is my pond of energy. And if from my head I drop that pebble of worry, the ripple effects affects those people around me at whatever level
100%.
they're in. And I'm not a female, and I've never had breasts,
Really?
so it's been rumored, but but
Daniel and I have been friends for a really long time, so we do like to give each other a little
I
back
know
and forth.
I'm trying to be like, this is very serious, people. But
This
then
is
I forget
serious.
it's Annmarie that's here next to me. And but again, like I'm sure that your personality was not all in your breast. Like there was like,
No.
but they are removing something that identifies you as a female, that makes you attractive or sexy or gives you confidence. Same thing for me. Like I got my ostomy bag when I was 45, and I've been with my partner for about 3 years, 4 years, and um, you're just starting. You still want to be in the
Yeah.
honeymoon, and you want to be touched and felt, and you want to enjoy that. But when me, the center of that ripple, feels not, and I said I use this word energetically, feels threatened. When my energy feels threatened, like once you touch me, how are you going to feel? So before
Yeah.
you reject me, I'm going to reject you. And but it's a defense mechanism for anybody out there who's a caregiver and watching this. It is totally a defense mechanism. It
Right.
has nothing to do with you personally. But again,
It's
talking
about
about
us.
intimacy. Yeah, talking about intimacy, it starts making that divide.
There is something, and I know I'm pretty sure you will relate to this, that I wanted to point out. When you're diagnosed with anything, especially cancer, you are constantly poked and prodded. You go to the doctors, and every time I went to the doctors, my doctor is checking my chest. It became almost like medical. Like it wasn't I just didn't I couldn't get that back in the beginning because I felt
Wow.
like I was like a lab rat, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And when that's private, right? Your body is your private sanctuary. And when you constantly are going to doctor's appointments and having to get checked, and you're getting checked by residents and the nurses coming in and the PEs coming, I mean, it's just, you start to lose that sense of, privacy and connection to your own body because it's medical. And that part of it is actually hard to really get back and to remember that this is still your sanctuary. And one thing that I did, and it was from a friend that helped me through this a little bit, when I went to the doctors all the time, they give you the plastic freaking nightgown or night shirt or whatever it's called, hospital gown. That's the word I'm looking for. Um, and you felt like a patient. So she had this cute little wrap. It's a silk wrap, and it wraps the right way so the doctors can still check you, but it was mine. So when I went to that appointment, I had a piece of me, and I didn't feel like a patient, so to speak. It
Wow.
may seem so small and so trivial, but I'll tell you what, now when I go to the doctors, I just had I just was at the doctor's for a breast check a couple weeks ago. They know. They're like, "Oh, you got your shirt, you got your, gown with you." It still just made me feel like I was still me. And I wasn't just a patient.
Yeah. There's a moment during my cancer, and for those of you, I was diagnosed May 5th of 2015,
Cinco
and
de
it's
Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo, yes, that's how Mexican I am. But my journey started with the hernia surgery. I went in for hernia surgery, and then we were on to cancer, and then to ostomy. So I was down for a year and a half. But it's true. It's so interesting that you said, because I thought I was the only one that felt that way sometimes. Like you become a number. You
Yeah,
become like a bracelet
a
tag,
bracelet. Yeah.
and it takes, for any caregivers out there or any nurses or doctors, like it's the little things that push you beyond and remind you that you're still a person,
Mhm.
and not just a tag. But yeah,
Right.
I brought my teddy bear the last time I was in
I
the
did too.
emergency room.
I put that up there because I brought I from that on in, I brought my own stuff. There was no way. And I just a light bulb went off. I remember the language that I wanted to use here. And I remember hearing it for the first time. I was giving birth to my first child. And again, like, just covering up when the nurses walk in and the nurse said to me, "Oh, honey, you're going to lose that modesty sooner than you think." And I remember thinking, no, I don't want to lose that modesty sooner than I think. Like, there's part of that that's really, there's something special about it. You still want to be modest. I mean, I don't want to, I mean, granted, I did like share my mastectomy pictures all over the internet, but that's a different story. That has nothing to do with this.
But that's control. That's controlling the
Yes,
situation when everything's out of your control.
correct.
Because I so dig that, because on the way home, uh, to put in perspective, I live in Laguna Beach. My partner lives in Culver City, but my doctor was in Newport, which is kind of in the middle. So we drove from Culver to the doctor's office to get my results. And on the way back, I'm texting my sister saying, "Hey, can I call you? I need to tell you something." I don't think I even turned to him, and I said to Christian, "I'm going to do a video when I get home." And he didn't hesitate. He goes, "Of course you are," and because that's who, like you, that's what I want. But you know what? I looked at those a couple of days ago because I was cleaning up my YouTube page, and I looked at some of them. But that was having some control when
Yep.
everything was out of my control.
And it's healing. That's how you heal yourself. This comment that Karin just posted, I think, is really important. I understand finding comfort sometimes in a number to protect have that little bit of protection around it. And the last phrase there is so important. You are not a sexual being. That is actually really true. This is not what this conversation is about. This is about that, gaining that sense of yourself back that you find. I don't even want to say beautiful. That's not the right word I'm looking for. Dana, help me out here because my brain is like on mush
But
today. But you know, you get it taken away, that sexual part of you, but then you
yeah,
want to bring it back in. And you are so right. It would be totally worse if our doctors looked at us that way, 100%. So there
yeah.
is that protection around that, which is so much. It's so important because we
But
we don't.
going back to what you were just talking about, that talking about intimacy, we lose that intimacy with ourselves for a minute.
That's
First of
exactly what
all,
I'm talking about.
yeah. First
It's
of
the
all, we
definition. That's what I was trying to get out. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
if
no,
if I don't get out right when I'm speaking, it's the definition, right? This doesn't define our sexual being in the least bit. But in the beginning, you do think that. You think that this
yeah,
is defining your sexual being of yourself, and it's not. Sometimes it's just putting on it could be something. Sweatpants can make you feel beautiful and sexy and attractive and everything in between, and make you feel really good about yourself. It
yeah.
doesn't What you're wearing isn't it? It's what's on the inside, and that's really hard to bring to yourself, especially when you're dealing with so much health issues. And I know we're 20 minutes in this. We didn't even talk about what medication does to us. It's not just the losing the libido part of it, but it's the weight gain. It's the
Girl,
acne. It's losing your hair. It's thinning hair. It's hair coming from places you didn't want to have hair in. It's all of that stuff that really changes being intimate with somebody else, but also that feeling of intimacy with yourself. It's really hard to look at yourself and say, wow,
yeah.
this is
When
new.
before I go into this, what you're saying, the intimacy part. Before we move on from that, I forgot how to be intimate with myself because I felt like my body had betrayed me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, the rejection part.
Yeah, body, mind, and spirit. I was not connected. They were not talking to each other, and
Right.
I wasn't talking to them because my spirit was in the trash. my mind was all over the place and my body was betraying me. So I felt talk about lonely and alone. That is
Mhm.
one of the loneliest times ever in my life when I was starting that process. But then you talk about medications, and for everybody, imagine radiation hitting you right in the crotch,
Right
to
in the
to
breast.
to get rid of the anal cancer. And when you look at that area, first of all, I mean, I'm a Mexican macho man. Like, don't mess with my area. And so you start, and please take this seriously. Do not go down the web rabbit hole of researching things too much on your own, or be aware of where you go, because I started going down that rabbit hole of how it is going to affect everything, not just the anal cancer, but everything in that area, and how radiation was going to mess things up. So even before I lost control of that space, I was already losing control of it. And that was, you're a man, you're in a relationship, like, hear
Right.
me roar, and all of a sudden they take that
Those who
away.
know Daniel are thinking in their head, I didn't know that side of
Yeah, yeah.
him.
If you're wondering if I'm going there, yes, I'm totally going there. I'm trying to keep me out of the gutter, but it's very
You're
difficult
doing a very
sometimes.
good job. I'm super proud
Thank
of you.
you, thank
I'm
you.
really proud of you.
And then chemo. For those of you who have done chemo, the beautiful wonders that it does in your for your taste buds. Number one, it took me months to get that chemo smell out of my
Oh, yeah.
nose. I don't know if anybody. Yeah, you had that.
Well,
Like,
I'm so glad. So there's a few things I want to say. First of all, I'm so glad we're touching all these little things because, you have so much going on. I have so much going on. So we have a bevy of points to make, but crap, I just lost it again. This is chemo brain right here,
yeah,
full on. What was I gonna say? Oh, keep talking
uh,
and then I'll interrupt you.
taste buds, radiation,
Oh, I know what I was
chemo.
gonna say. We don't talk about this. Like my doctor didn't sit me down and say, "Look, you're probably gonna lose a little bit of your libido. You're not gonna feel really connected like that. The intimacy part's gonna be really, really hard to get back. You will get it back. You're just gonna have to work on it." No one said any of that. So in your head, and I know because I've spoken to many people, whether it's with MS or whether it's mental health, whatever it is, they think that's it. That's it. I give up because we're not talking about it. If we would talk about this just a little bit more, because you're right, you lose all these things. You do get a little bit of them back, but you get other stuff on top of that. This isn't, this is a pause. I just want to keep saying that. This is a pause. You can gain all that back. You just got to keep working on yourself because that is the key to it. And I wish somebody would have warned me about those things. And I understand that in the beginning, they don't really want to tell you about everything because they're going to scare you right away. But I felt like I was the only one at first. I'm like, this just must be me. There must be something wrong with me. I must be 40 now, and this is what's just going to happen. No, that is not it. And we also shouldn't accept it. All those little things that go on, what some of them, yes, I can't do certain things anymore. You're 100% right. And I've accepted that. But there are things I can do. And this has changed my perspective on things. But it took me a while to get there through advocacy and through talking to other people and sharing my story.
Yeah, and you're so right. Christian, my partner, and I talk about this anytime they give us a platform. Is the little things that nobody talked about that we had to figure out on our own. And then once you figure it out, it's like people are like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that happens." You were like, "Why are we not talking?" So I really respect these conversations, because I hope it's an opportunity for people watching to learn that things will happen. And you know what? There's another thing that I've made peace with is having the conversations of worst case scenario. We are so afraid. Oh, don't be negative. Don't talk about that. Oh, stay positive. Oh, but worst case scenario is not negative.
Right.
It's not being pessimistic. It's being realistic and saying, "Hey, this could happen. Let's just be prepared in case this happens."
Sure.
And
Um, you said something that I have to point out. Fear. There is a level of fear to this. And I don't just mean about rejection. Am I going to be in pain? I don't just mean physically, I mean mentally. Like, what is this going to do if I can't, feel good about myself or I don't feel beautiful in that dress, or whatever it is, or like laying with my partner isn't enough. Like, there is a lot of fear, a lot of fear. And if we don't talk about it, we will never ever be able to get past it. And I'm going to say a sentence, and we'll see how this goes over, but um, communication is the best lubrication. And I don't mean it in a sexual way. I mean to get the conversation going with your partner, or your whoever it is, yourself. You have to talk about it. And whether it's with someone else in the advocacy world, or somebody, your doctor. I agree with Karin said, setting expectations and finding a new reality. The only way we can do that is by conversation, because again, I thought I was the only one. I didn't think that other people felt this way, or they had a lack of intimacy. Again, not just with ourselves, not just with our partner, but everything combined.
Because I was very physically active before my ostomy, and I worked in promotions and events, and I was, putting up tents and moving boxes and doing. So when cancer came along, it slowed me down. But I'm like, I can still do this. And then the ostomy almost completely stopped me. But it's because I didn't. There wasn't somebody there to have a conversation with, to say, okay, let's start you exercising again. Let's start moving again.
Right.
And over time, that layer of fear just kept adding to it. Because here I am 5 years into my ostomy, and I'm afraid of working out. I want to do it, but mentally I'm not where, like most people. I have a membership to a gym. Have I been there? No. But every time I'm like, okay, I'm tomorrow. But the ostomy idea pops in my head. It's like, what if something happens? What if your bag pops? What if it bursts? What if something happened? And but because there was nobody, I didn't have training wheels. And I think these conversations offer people training wheels, so that they know that it's going to take you a little time, but we can get you close to where you were before. Um, I didn't lose myself. I just forgot where parts of me are,
Right.
and I have to go back and pick those up.
So we have a question here. What does intimacy with yourself mean? And I love this question. And I had something pulled up, and this is the perfect time to address this. I looked up the word intimacy, and some of the definition is close, close familiarity or friendship, just a closeness. This is the one that I love: a private, cozy atmosphere. And I think that is part of intimacy with yourself. It's being able to be in that private, comfortable space with yourself before you can actually share that space with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. When my partner and I met, we were both in our 40s. So there was this really cool connection that we had, that we were like, look, you're not here to make me happy. You're not here to complete me. I'm already my own person. Let's just unite and share that. Uh, but cancer, and not so much HIV, because by the time we met, I had already like been an advocate for a long time.
Right.
But cancer and the ostomy definitely, like, it's an uninvited guest that walked in and took over your house. And in my case, ate my favorite tacos. And I was going to say tacos somewhere along the
Of
line,
course, it's
of
Tuesday.
course. And but that's what it did. It burst into my intimate spaces and messed with everything, body, mind, and spirit. And it's
Right.
taken me some time to get some of it back. I haven't gotten there yet. I don't know that I will, because I'm not the same person that I was before cancer.
No,
Um,
and I think that goes back to finding a new reality. Exactly. And setting expectations. So, Lifebulb is all about solutions. So, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Daniel, again, for me sending you a text and you jumping right on, because I don't know how I would have had this conversation by myself. So, I can't thank you enough for doing that. You're one of our, amazing ambassadors, and I just can't thank you enough for your advocacy and what you're doing. But I do want to kind of talk about what what can we do to tell other people, right? So for me personally, this conversation, this is what I've gotten out of it: is I love the pause. Remember that this is a pause. It's a pause in your life. So pause it for a minute, get through what you need to, and then get to that close, comfy atmosphere with yourself, that intimate atmosphere. The word rejection, I think, is important. I know we all feel like our body does reject us and that it's failed us. It hasn't. It's working overload. It's working on overload to get us through things. It's doing its job. It has to take time to heal and to go through the process. You will get there. Fear. I know how scary all of this can be, but if you look at all the people around you, and I mean people who have gone through exactly what you've gone through, or maybe something similar, they're getting through it. So if they can get through it, you can get through it. So while I understand the fear, sometimes we have to face it and go through it before we can really, heal ourselves from it. And the last thing I want to say is you have to talk. I don't know when that conversation should be with yourself or with your partner, but you have to talk. And you will not necessarily always know when you're ready. I always say this to someone. There's things in life that you're not always ready for. Sometimes you just have to take the plunge and do it. So having a conversation with yourself and then your partner is really, really important because it's the only way that you can find that comfortable space in that intimate nature. What you got for me, Daniel?
Um, yes, 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 yes to all that. Um, I'm big into the spiritual coaching and the
Of course.
chakras and the energy. And I always think like a good spiritual coach, somebody who will guide you through your chakras to eliminate the blockages to open yourself up. Because sometimes we hide behind our energy. We use negative energy to protect us and keep us comfortable, and it's
Mhm.
going to betray you at some moment. Number two, I think stop comparing. Do not compare yourself to somebody else in their journey. um,
Love this.
it, you are you. You are in your body. Your body's going to do what it needs to do to heal you. Your mind is going to guide you. Your spirit is going to guide you. But if you compare yourself, oh, Annmarie healed, and look at her, she's so social. I'm never going to be that, so I'm just not going to do anything. You've already set yourself up to lose. So stop comparing yourself to other people. You are your own person.
I love that. That is so
Honor that.
important.
Honor that. And I think the last thing is I'm going to underline and highlight what you said. The truth. Like there has to be a time when you sit in front of the mirror and go, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What do you want? Like this happened to us. This happened to our body, our mind, and our spirit. What do you want? Where do you want to go from here? And be honest with yourself. I have known several people who, after a diagnosis of whatever, have decided, like, you know what, I'm leaving corporate and I'm gonna go start doing something else, or I'm gonna leave that heavy job and I'm gonna start a bakery, or I'm gonna go on a journey around the world.
Do
Things
you know
change.
how many jobs I've had? I've been a
Girl,
teacher. I've worked in a funeral home. I've been a caterer. I mean, my list goes on and on. The change is not what scares me so much. It's failing. And I think like having my body fail me for so many years in the past few, almost 10 now, because I did have a breakdown before I was diagnosed with cancer. And it took me a year to get back from that. Was hard. That was hard. And I had to come to terms with it. And I did a lot of comparing, Daniel, a lot. And I love that you said that because that is really our nemesis is the comparison. You know, just because your friends are doing whatever doesn't mean that you have to be doing it. One of the best quotes I think is don't compare, your chapter 6 to my chapter 17. We all have a different book and this happens at its own time. And I agree. This conversation was very refreshing and raw and real. And I just can't thank you enough for joining me.
my pleasure. Thank you for thinking of me. When things were rough, you thought of me, and that,
Of
but
course.
that says a lot. But before we are we done? Is this what we're doing?
Yeah,
Um,
we
I
can end in a couple minutes.
um, what you said is so true. It's like and I'll say this: there were a couple of people. There's a couple of people with ostomies on Instagram who are like bodybuilders, and they have these amazing bodies. And
Ah,
I kept looking at them and going, "Why them and not me? Why them and not me?" And then I thought, because they're professional bodybuilders, Garza. That's what they do. Like that's what their path is. Your social media. You kick ass at what you do because
Right.
that's your path. So I had to stop following them for a little bit because I was getting caught up in the woe is me. Now I'm not gonna. On the other side,
And you're
I'm
not a
not.
real woe is me person, so.
I no, but I'm going to tell everybody. Number one, also get a mood buddy. We all need a mood buddy, somebody who is willing to listen to you, either complain or celebrate your life, and doesn't ask questions and doesn't want explanations. This is somebody that you can call and go, today was one of those days, and
You are definitely a mood buddy. I have definitely called you up when I've had some stuff going on and been like, and you just listen. And I think that is
yes,
perfect. And, you know,
a
so
mood
one
buddy.
other thing I just need to say before we end this is I know we did a lot of talking about personal intimacy. You have to find that person that you can be honestly intimate with when you have all these changes in your life and health issues. Because if you cannot open up and explain to them, you know, I can't I can't do this. This is not the right time. Or, you know, I need to just detach for a little bit. That's not who you need to be with because somebody is going to love you for you. It has nothing to do with your ostomy. It has nothing to do with your breast cancer being removed. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's just you. One of our ambassadors, she had cancer and a rare cancer, and she had some lady parts changed around. And I'll never forget this interview listening to her talk. I also am friends with her, so I know that, and she shared this. Just listening to her say her husband didn't care about any of that. He just wanted her. That is intimacy. It has nothing to do with all that other stuff. It has to do with just wanting to be with the person. And in turn, you have to want to be with yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Think of your thoughts as a little pebble and your life as a little pond. And every
ooh.
time a pebble drops, it sets the ripple effect. And who in your life does that ripple affect? Who's the first layer? Who's the second layer? And that's really what I do when I have these thoughts. Give yourself permission. If you don't like pity parties, that's fine. I do an occasional pity party. It involves tacos and cake. And then when that doesn't work, yes, I with my clients, I always tell them have a mood buddy. And it doesn't have to be your partner. It doesn't have to be your caregiver. It doesn't have to be your doctor. It could be somebody random that you met on a support group page that you're like, hey, we may not talk all the time, but can I have you as a mood buddy and explain to them what that is? And then you just, hey, I need you for 5 minutes just to vent. And that person, all they have to do is get on the phone and go, tell me.
So you actually have a really excellent point that I swear to God, I keep saying we're going to be done, but this is a very good point because there is a level of anonymity when you connect with someone, especially like our ambassadors are amazing and I've watched you all connect with each other, right? But you don't know each other. I mean, you and I have met multiple times. I know your being. When you don't know someone in that level, like they don't really know your personal life, you can open up in a different way to that person because there is no judgment there. They don't have to see you every day. They don't, you know, there is something to be said about that anonymity. I cannot speak to that.
Anonymity.
What is wrong with me?
Anonymity. There we go.
Anonymity to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, Daniel, thank you for being not just an ambassador and my friend, but my mood buddy.
Thank
We're
you. Yeah.
Lyfebulb
And
is 100% coining that phrase, just so you know. I'll be
yes.
talking to you about doing something with that later.
Yeah.
Um,
My clients and my TikTok followers, we use that term almost every day that we're on. Mood buddy. Do you have a mood buddy? Because people are like, I have nobody to talk to. Yes, you do. You just haven't found it. So go find him. And
right.
and and I'm going to say that idea came for those of you who have been to treatment. Though that idea came to me from waiting rooms for chemo and radiation, especially radiation. We would go into radiation into this room and wait for our turn, and there was always somebody there either coming or going, changing clothes. And in those minutes that they were there, it was like, how are you doing? How are you doing? Good morning, good morning. Oh my God, my butt hurts. Yes, how's the radiation going? I have this itch, and my wife and my children and work. And then they would leave, and you're like, that just felt so good.
Yeah, actually, this is a whole different conversation, but I think there is a level because usually nobody goes with you to radiation. You're going by yourself, which I never understood because it's just as bad as chemo, but you're there alone and you do need to connect with someone desperately because of what it's doing to your body. But
Yeah.
that we need to have that conversation another time.
Yes,
But
we're gonna have a whole mood buddy
mood,
session
I
here.
love it. I love it. Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you all for
much.
joining us, and I hope that you enjoyed this conversation, and we will see you on Lyfebulb.